Hey everybody, Josh Rosenau here. Welcome to the NCSE webinar on the National Climate Assessment. As you can see, we've got a great panel, so I'm going to turn my camera off pretty shortly and turn it over to our great guests and the hands of Minda Berbeco, my colleague at NCSE, who works on climate change education issues. I just wanted to do a couple quick bookkeeping things. This is a monthly series, so if you enjoy what we're doing this month, I hope that you'll sign up for the webinar next month. The topic there isn't totally settled, but I'm optimistic that it will be social media, which should be fun. And you will all get an email at the end of this with a link to a survey, and I hope that you'll fill that out. We do look at those and try to make these events better based on your feedback. So please do fill that out. We really appreciate it. There are a few ways that you can interact with the panel, and I hope that you will do that. On the GoToWebinar control panel on the side of your screen, you should see there should be a little button that looks sort of like a hand. If you mash that button, it's the equivalent of raising your hand, and it tells us that you want us to unmute your microphone and ask a question. There's also, if you scroll down a little bit in that control panel on the side, there's something that says questions. If you unfold that, you can type in a question, and the panelists will see it and either just type a response or read it out and discuss it as a group. So that's a good way to just get your question into the queue without having to worry about whether we'll notice that the hand button went up and calling on you. There's also going to be a poll in a little while that we're going to ask for your feedback on what you're familiar with about NCA and those issues. So all that being said, I will turn this over to Minda and turn my camera off.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Josh. And thanks everyone for attending. My name's Minda Berbeco. Some of you I'm sure I've met before, but I'm Programs and Policy Director here at the National Center for Science Education, specializing in climate change education. And in my role here at NCSE, we've been involved with the affiliate group, the education affiliate group for the National Climate Assessment. So the National Climate Assessment is going to be rolling out in a couple weeks. We thought it was appropriate to introduce our membership to what the NCA actually is and all of the really neat opportunities that are going to be surrounding it. So with me today, I have several panelists. I think, Josh, if you could pull up the first slide, that would be great, because it'll have their contact information on it. But we have Emily Cloyd from the USGCRP, and she's going to be giving us some background about the National Climate Assessment, what it is, and so on. We have Amanda Rycerz, and correct me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, Amanda.
That's
I
right.
apologize. Okay, good. From Habitat 7, who's been instrumental in developing the website and the social media components of the National Climate Assessment. And then we have Paige Knappenberger from Climate Nexus, who has been instrumental in the communications affiliate group that is working to ensure that this report is not ignored in any means, because it is so important, especially to what's going on right now in our country. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things off to Emily, and she can tell you more about what the National Climate Assessment is, and then we're going to be opening things up after our panelists have had an opportunity for some discussion with everybody involved. So go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Minda. All right, so just going to let my slides get pulled up here.
There we go.
All right, so the third National Climate Assessment is expected to come out on May 6th. The assessment, as you'll see in a minute, is written by a federal advisory committee, and so the advisory committee will take their vote at 8 a.m. Eastern on May 6th, and if all goes well and they approve it, they pass it to the government, and it will be released by the government shortly afterwards. And once that release happens, you'll be able to find it on nca2014.globalchange.gov. Next slide, please. So the third National Climate Assessment is conducted under the auspices of the U.S. Global Change Research Program. Oops, I see I missed the research there. In response to the requirements of the Global Change Research Act of 1990. So there are 13 agencies and departments that are a part of the U.S. Global Change Research Program. And they commissioned a 60-member federal advisory committee to actually oversee the report. That committee then selected 300 authors from public, private, academic, and nonprofit sectors who did the work of actually writing the report. Next slide. So the report itself is 1,300 pages long, and it will be available in both HTML and in PDF format. The HTML form, which I think Amanda is going to talk to us a little bit more about that and some of the neat things that are happening with that site, will allow users to see not just the report, but also to link to underlying data, supporting materials, and traceable accounts that explain why the authors came to the conclusions that they did for the report. We know that not everyone is able to read a 1,300-page report, and so we also have a 120-page-ish highlight document that will be available both on that website as well as in PDF form, and will also be available in print for people to order. That highlights document goes through the report findings as well as the high-level findings for each of the 30 chapters. As I said, we anticipate it will come out on May 6th and will be available at nca2014.globalchange.gov. Next slide, please. So the goal of the third National Climate Assessment is really to enhance the ability of the U.S. to adapt, mitigate, and anticipate changes in the global environment. And to do that, the entire assessment process was really envisioned as an inclusive, broad-based, and sustained process that would assess and communicate scientific knowledge about impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities associated with climate change, and support decision-making across the U.S. And as I said, this is the third National Climate Assessment. We've had 2 previous ones. The requirements of the Global Change Research Act are that we have an assessment every 4 years. We've been averaging a little bit longer. The first came out in 2000 and the second in 2009. So we are close to on time with this one. But one of the reasons that we haven't been able to meet that time limit in previous assessments is because it really needs to be an ongoing process where we build capacity to do assessment and then continue that capacity once the report is released and immediately move towards the next assessment. So that's why we have this sustained process. Next slide, please. So what's actually in the report? The first section of the report talks about climate science, and it discusses historical climate conditions, observed changes, trends that we see, and then future climate scenarios and what may happen in the next 25 to 100 years. There's also a separate section at the back of the report that addresses frequently asked questions about climate change and climate change science. And so that will be a resource for educators and for others who might have questions about climate science and who might be able to, who might be looking for some quick answers, some resources to use in teaching about climate science. Next slide, please. Oh, we missed one. So within the report then, there are 13 sectors and sectoral crosscuts that are covered. So this looks at the impacts of climate change on water resources, on energy, on transportation, on agriculture, on forests, on ecosystems and biodiversity, and on human health. And then new for this report, we really looked at not just those sectors independently, but how do they intersect? Where is society seeing some of these impacts, and needing to address the challenges of climate change. And so we have this new group of sectoral crosscuts. So these are chapters on the intersections of water, energy, and land use, on urban systems, on indigenous peoples' lands and resources, on land use and land cover change, rural communities, and biogeochemical cycles, so carbon and nitrogen. Next slide, please. We also conducted the assessment for each of 10 regions of the US. So this allows people to see how climate is changing and what the impacts are where they live. And so we have eight regions, geographic regions, so Northeast, Southeast, and Caribbean, Midwest, Great Plains, Northwest, Southwest, Alaska, and Hawaii and Pacific Islands. We also have 2 biogeographical crosscuts that look at the impacts of climate change on oceans and marine resources and on coast. And that coast includes not just ocean coast, but also the Great Lakes coast. Next slide, please. The final section of the report deals with responses to climate change. This is also a new section we have not had in previous reports. And this looks at how is society responding to climate change? How is information about climate change used to support decisions that are being made? And then how is the country progressing in mitigation and adaptation? And then the very end of the report discusses a research agenda for the future, as well as a sustained assessment process. And how do we keep this process going? What are new topics and new areas that we might work on for the future? Next slide, please. So as I said, you'll be able to find the report online at nca2014.globalchange.gov. It should be available May 6th, that morning after the committee votes and approves the report. And I hope that many of you will use it and find it very interesting and useful. And I guess I will hand it back over to Minda at this time.
Thanks, Emily. That's okay. So we have a couple questions for folks who I can just run through them really quickly because we're a bit curious about what background folks have had with the National Climate Assessment before. Have you heard of it? Have you read past versions? Did you read the draft version when it was available? Well, sorry, it's still available, but did you read the draft version and comment on it? And I'm not going to vote on any of those because I think everyone's going to know my answers. But while folks are answering that, why don't we move on to Amanda from Habitat 7, and you can start talking about what you guys have been doing with the National Climate Assessment.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? Or Minda, the other panelists?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Amanda, and I'm with Habitat 7, which was the company that was contracted to do the web design for the NCA. And I'll speak later on during the question period more so to the website. But for now, I'll just speak to my role within the NCA project, which is working in consortium with NCANet partners to further the digital distribution and social media sharing of the report. So over at Habitat 7, what I did was create a master list of, oh, sorry, my computer is messing up with me. So I created a master list of over 600 different organizations that were related to the different sectors and regions of the report, as Emily had just mentioned. I then went through the NCA draft report and extracted different pieces of content that would be of relevance to these organizations. So for example, let's say there's an asthma organization. They would be particularly interested in the human health chapter of the NCA that discusses increased incidence of airborne illnesses. So we would reach out to those organizations with the specifics of the health chapter and the information that was of greatest relevance to them. And we did this all across various organizations across the different regions and sectors, informing them of the NCA, providing them with a PDF document that outlined the sharing features of the NCA NCA and the design template, and how they could use this information within their social media networks, and also answered any questions that they may have. And as the site is anticipated to go live next week, we're going to follow up with them again with direct URLs and links to different aspects of the report, so they can share this content on their webpage, social media sites, newsletters, and listservs. So in this way, we've managed to send out the report to a variety of different organizations and build a lot of traction around the rollout.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to actually ask you more about that later on because I was intrigued by that. That's a quality usage of the report. Next, we have Paige Knappenberger from Climate Nexus. So go ahead, Paige.
Great. I just lost the...
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, well, I think it's useful to know. So about half of the folks have heard of the NCA but not used it for anything in particular. About 20% have read past versions, which is impressive. And about a quarter read the draft version. So most of the people here listening in perhaps haven't read it and certainly haven't used it before. A good chunk haven't used it before. So hopefully we'll be able to come up with some good ideas about how people can start using it more, either in the classroom or in their communities. So with that, let's go to Paige.
Hi guys, my name is Paige Knappenberger. I'm the Media Relations Associate over at Climate Nexus, and since we're a relatively making sure the most important information reaches the media and is framed in the clearest and most effective way possible. We've done this by doing things like creating a document that explains the differences between the IPCC and the NCA. And then I'll be in DC pitching national reporters and outlets, as well as coordinating interview requests on May 6th when the report comes out. Alongside me, there will be a small team of people from Climate Nexus working in parallel, doing the same thing, but on a state-by-state level. So then my next slide, which I can't see the slides, I don't know.
Josh, do you have those up?
Sorry, I had a computer thing, but it's fixed now.
Oh.
Okay.
While we're waiting, I can just describe what it is anyways. It's a map based on data from Stanford University professor John Krosnick. It was released in 2013.
There it is.
The data in this map is basically showing how people responded to the question, has global warming been happening? I wanted to share it because I think it shows how the issue is really divisive state by state in the country. I mean, opinions vary clearly a lot. And this report, because it focuses so much on impacts at the local level, is a really great tool for reaching these audiences and highlighting how it's happening right now and how they can make that connection between what they're seeing and what scientists know is related to climate change. So that was about it. I just think it was a good thing to keep in mind who you're talking to and, how perceptions are of the issue in your state.
Thanks, Paige. Terrific. Thanks, Paige.
Sorry.
So I'm going to talk really briefly about the Education Affiliate Group and what we've been up to.
We got a question
if
access to the document comparing IPCC and the NCA is available. Paige, did you email that to me?
No, but you know what? I can just pull it up. I can just pull it up and I can post it in the
Yeah, that'd be great.
questions and answer section, no? Okay.
That'd be terrific. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, so I can talk a little bit about what the Education Affiliate Group has been doing and what our plans are with the NCA rollout. And then from there, we can move on to folks' questions. So this is great. So the Education Affiliate Group's goals are to take the regional sections of the NCA report, which Emily showed how the country is sort of being split up into these different sections, and provide value-added resources for educators to use. So one of the things that we've definitely gotten a lot of feedback is that educators are looking for really localized or regional information about how climate change is impacting their area. And a lot of the information that's out there and available to them and resources tend to be of a global nature or a national nature. And so the NCA is a really unique opportunity to be able to give students something that this is happening right in your backyard and make it extremely relevant for them. So we're going to be pulling out the really great stories that are coming out of the NCA, coupling them up with lesson plans that are going to be regionally specific, some from the Clean Network, some from other locations. We'll have links to the relevant parts of the NCA, couple it with relevant images and simulations, as well as link it to the science standards and also Common Core standards, which are the English and math standards as well, so that educators can pull a lot in together. Since the report's coming out in May, we need time to do that, so that'll be available sometime this summer, so educators can start using this in their classroom in the fall. If anyone's interested in helping the affiliate group and joining us in our efforts, they can just get in touch with me later on, and I'd be happy to connect them up with the appropriate people. And also, I wanted to throw out that our colleague Mark McCaffrey here at NCSE is going to be at the rollout in DC on May 6th too, and we're going to plan on having a call for our members talking about what's going on and some of the key findings from the NCA. Unfortunately, because it hasn't been released yet, we can only talk about some of the material, but not to the extent that I think we'll be able to talk about it after it comes out. So with that, I wanted to open it up for questions. If people want to add questions to their chat box, they can do that. If they want to raise their hand, we can do that too. But I'll start with sort of some questions for our panelists, and then we can go from there. So maybe Emily, would you mind talking a little bit? I know it's early and we can't really address a lot of specifics, but would you mind talking a little bit about some of the key take-homes, or once we get the report in our hands, which page or which section we should be looking for at first? What do you think is going to be the most interesting thing coming out of it? Oh, you're muted though. You have to unmute.
Oh, sorry, folks.
Thank you.
So I think one of the most important things is, everybody in the U.S. is going to find something in this report that is interesting to them, that's relevant to them, and, find things that you're going to, find in your backyard, that you're going to have, that are relevant for your area. So, if you, if you look and you're interested in what's happening in your region, obviously we're going to have not just a full chapter on your region, but we'll also have in that highlights document a 2-page pullout that's really going to say, here is the piece that is most relevant for what's happening for your region. What's happening, is it a question of sea level rise? Is it a question of extreme weather? And, what are people actually doing? What's happening with adaptation or mitigation? The other important point is the report is going to talk about how climate change is not just a problem for the future, but it really has moved firmly into the present. So, the report looks at observed changes across the U.S. and documents those changes in the assessment. And it links those changes to impacts on the American people in every region, in every sector. And Great. So I think that's a good start.
Terrific. Thanks. Thanks, Emily. So we actually have Victor Hutchinson has his hand raised. So Josh, maybe can you switch over to Victor
Vic,
so he
fire
can
away.
ask his question?
Yeah, Vic, you're on.
Hi, Victor.
Hello.
Hi, Victor. Are you there?
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and
Okay,
ask your question.
thank you. This is very interesting to me. A little background. Oklahoma's for Excellence in Science Education is sponsoring a workshop for science teachers in the fall on climate change taught by professional climatologists. These materials you both mentioned would be very helpful. Do you know when a hard copy of the report will be out, and Minda, when will your lesson plans be available? Our workshop is in September, and I think others would be interested in knowing how to obtain these. Thank you.
Sure. So why don't I start?
Sounds good.
The 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 report will be available. As I said, the full 1,300-page document will not be available in hard copy, but that 120-ish page highlights document will be available in hard copy starting on May 6th. You'll be able to order it through the resource library on globalchange.gov, and we can send you copies of it. Or you can also download and print the PDFs yourself. So you can download that entire 120-ish page document, or you can also download and print things like a 4-page handout that talks about the 12 overarching report findings, or that 4-page handout that talks about climate trends, or those 2-page regional handouts.
Great. And as for the educational material, that's going to be available this summer. We don't have a specific date yet, and I think it's a little bit, we were keeping it flexible because we weren't sure exactly when the report would be released. But we're hoping by midsummer it'll be available. And I'm going to just be posting right here in the chat box where it will be posted, all of the information. And of course, if you're interested in getting involved, we'd be happy to have you on our team too. It's really useful to have folks from the regional areas to really highlight, yes, this is what teachers are interested in. So it'd be great, if anyone's interested in supporting us on that, that would be terrific. I think Kristen Poppleton has her hand raised, so maybe we can move to Kristen.
Kristen, you're unmuted. Yeah,
Okay.
she said that
Is she
she
coming
just hit the
through?
wrong button. But there is a question that Richard Forrest typed in
Okay.
that Emily might want to answer.
Okay.
At least in the case of the draft NCA, there was nothing I could find that could be called a traceable account. Could you direct me to where I can find the specifications and processes that are to be used for that principle?
Sure. So actually, if you go to any of the chapters, at the very end of each chapter, you'll see the traceable account form. And so that traceable account form describes the scientific evidence base for each of the key findings in that particular chapter. It explains how the team of authors came to their conclusions, what the process was to decide on those key findings for the chapter. And then it also describes certainty about the findings. So there's actually you'll see, if you go to the end of the chapter, you'll see there is a grid for each of those, a traceable account grid for each of the key findings in the chapter.
Okay.
And then when you go to the final report, if you're downloading a PDF of the chapters, the same thing. You'll see at the end of the chapter those traceable accounts. If you are in the online version, you'll see when you're at each of the key messages, underneath that key message, you'll be able to click a link that says traceable account, and that will take you to that grid.
So we have a question from Steve Clark, and Paige, I think this is for you. And the graphic that you were showing us earlier that had different percentages across the country, he wanted to know, what is the percentage of importance? What does 77% mean, for example?
The 77% is the number of people who respond positively to the question of has global warming been happening? So 77% of people, I think you're probably guessing, you're looking at Arkansas, 77% of people there said yes, climate change has been happening.
Got it. Paige, since we have you on, Would you mind answering? I had another question. So the recent IPCC reports that have been coming out have been mostly ignored by local and regional media. We're here in Northern California, and actually I've seen very little local coverage of it, which is sort of surprising. You would think that people would be more interested. So, I have some concerns that the National Climate Assessment might come and go without people paying attention to that as well. And I'm wondering, um, how do you think local communities can get the media more involved in talking about the NCA? Should they be calling up radio talk shows? Should they be writing op-eds? What should people be doing?
So I have a couple of things. First, I want to clarify that there was coverage at the local level. It was just more through wire stories.
Okay.
So it's not the same in terms of the fact you don't get the same local perspective on the issue. But with the IPCC, because it has a broader lens, we weren't necessarily expecting that as much as we expect it with the NCA. Um, then also, my colleagues worked closely with those reporters at the wire outlets. So on the bright side, we know that the stories that they did write that got into your local papers were good stories.
That's good.
Then responding to the second part of your question, there are a lot of ways to engage. First of all, I want to clarify the difference between op-eds and letters to the editor. If you want to share a story or talk about a particular issue or an impact from climate change that's affecting your community, that's when you would write an op-ed. An op-ed is like your chance to be a reporter, if you will. And I don't know if Minda shared it yet, but I have an op-eds tip sheet that I would definitely refer you to. And
there we go.
That explains, it doesn't explain what letters to the editor are, but it explains what op-eds are. And so, yeah, they're not somewhere where you should really be complaining about coverage. They're somewhere where you should be telling a story with a point to it. Pick one message that you want to convey and convey it well in a short, tightly, well-written short essay, like usually around 150 words or less. Letters to the editor, on the other hand, those are your opportunity to interact or, compliment and or criticize your local media outlets. You can respond to distortions in the press, and those can be distortions in the form of omissions, meaning like if they don't talk about an issue or the NCA, or inaccurate coverage. They can also be helpful to counter other negative op-eds. Recently, we've seen an uptick in the success of climate deniers getting their op-eds published, and particularly those that don't really have the background or the expertise that they may convey through their op-ed. That's another great opportunity to, write a letter to the editor and say, if you're going to be highlighting these voices, you should highlight, voices that have the scientific expertise and knowledge on climate change as well.
Perfect. Thanks. Actually, that takes me to another question that's for Amanda. Speaking of spreading misinformation through op-eds and other letters to the editor and that sort of thing, social media is a great way to spread information, but it's also really good way to spread misinformation, as I think anyone who's been on Facebook has seen. So what are some good ways for folks to avoid the misinformation associated that no doubt will come out associated with the NCA, and how can they best counter it using what's going to be online for the NCA?
Sure. So we can't stop the report from getting into the hands of people who will deny aspects of the report or plant seeds of doubt regarding climate change. That's inevitable. And we're partially to blame because we created a report that was based around social media and getting a large amount of traction. So that is, we will anticipate that could happen. But I think the important ways to counter misinformation is to highlight that the report is based on vetted science from 300 experts from around the country. It's extensively peer-reviewed, not partisan, doesn't reflect the interest or agenda of any particular group, but is strictly based on science and evidence. In terms of individuals creating their own posts around the NCA, I would perhaps suggest not editorializing the report content itself when sharing it on social media. So while the content can be used to draw attention to a variety of different environmental causes, I would maybe advise against paraphrasing what's actually in the report, as there were particular word choices and nuance that when those words are changed can alter the meaning, and that could sort of provide more ammo to critics or skeptics. Like, for example, degrees of certainty in the traceable account, something that says that there's a high degree of confidence means something very in particular. So sort of switching words around could change meanings. And also, I mean, sort of building on this point, the need for science to acknowledge its uncertainty does pose a challenge to its communications. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, yes, there are some uncertainties, but that the science is sufficiently well established to know that climate change is occurring. It is mainly the result of anthropogenic activities, and there are significant threats to human and ecological systems, thus reiterating the main findings of the report and really pushing this to the fore.
Terrific. And Amanda, we got a question from Tim, and he wanted to basically suggest that this information is written up somewhere, but I'm wondering if you folks at Habitat 7 have any kind of links or anything like that that might be of use to people who are interested in trying to utilize social media for these sorts of efforts.
Sure. So if you email me directly, I can send a PDF document of sort of the template and the design features of the website. I can also get into that in a bit more detail and explain that if you'd like me to.
Sure. Yeah. If you don't mind taking a couple
Sure.
seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So firstly, I think it's important to clarify that there was no editorializing done on the website, and the website and the report is actually the same product. We did, however, use some proven social media and design strategies to build the greatest traction and to generate the largest amount of viewership around the website. So the whole idea for the site was to create a product that would be engaging, interactive, to sustain people's interests, and be widely accessible in order to draw in a variety of groups. And the idea was to target all audiences, but perhaps in particular tailor it to the casual internet user who is using various forms of social media. But of course, it is highly user-friendly and applicable to all audiences. There are features that will be of particular interest to science educators and scientists, such as traceable accounts and metadata. So rather than solely having, let's say, a PDF file of the report posted on the internet and having people filter through the report itself, the idea behind the site was to break down the report into smaller, more manageable chunks so that people could find and access the information that's of greatest relevance to them. So, for example, a farmer that wants to find information on the effects of climate change on agriculture in a particular area can type this into the search function or click on one of the tabs at the top of the page and choose the area of the report that is most relevant to them, which this sort of exclusivity on focusing where your interest lies facilitates more of a direct and personalized experience. And also with people's sort of short attention spans these days, you kind of can harness in on the information that you want right away. And in terms of the design architecture of the site, we use long scrolling pages to facilitate a better storytelling approach. So the user isn't waiting for a page to load after clicking it, but rather is scrolling through a continuous page. And this is also conducive across a variety of swipe-based devices like tablets, iPhones, iPads, etc. They're all swipe-based, which moves me into the sort of talk about the whole digital fore of the report. So it will function across a wide range of the devices. The screen will adjust to fit the device, so anyone can sort of access the report at any time, waiting for a bus, on your laptop at home, etc. And there will also be a series of interactive graphics in the report, which may have particular appeal to educators, including charts, maps, graphics, and before and after pictures. So overall, there's a lot of content in the report, 1,300 pages, some 300 graphics, 105 key messages, 12 key findings. So there's something for everyone in the report, and the way it's presented is very visually appealing and engaging. So if you'd like to see some screenshots of the site, you can shoot me an email, and I would be happy to send that to you.
Thanks, Amanda. Paige, you mentioned that Climate Nexus also has a useful guide on communicating with social media. Do you mind just giving us a really brief, maybe kind of what the key take-homes of that is, take-home messages are?
Yeah, sure. This isn't actually my primary area of expertise. I did not make the guide, but Generally it's just to consider the role of the platform. Like you don't want to be necessarily sharing a lot of um, long, lengthy, wordy pieces on Pinterest.
Hmm.
Also, I would attempt not to get into too much of a controversial claims on your Facebook account because, as we've all seen, that just entices people to, respond and comment. And then social media is a great way to highlight other things that you have done or good press, for example. A lot of times we'll use it here if we have an op-ed that we get published that we really like. We'll use it and share it through social media outlets to get people's attention to the best, clearest reporting on, in this case, the NCA.
Terrific. Thanks. And actually, Josh has a question for us. So go ahead, Josh.
Hey, yeah. So I was thinking Paige, when you were talking about media outreach around this, one thing that I was thinking about with the Citizens for Science groups that exist and the ones that are starting up,
Mm-hmm.
this can be a really great opportunity since we're talking about local impacts. And there are a lot of scientists in these groups, but there are clergy, there are teachers, hopefully there are farmers and factory workers and the whole gamut. That may be an opportunity for, also, in addition to letters to the editor and op-eds, also for meetings with editorial boards. And I wondered if you wanted to talk about that and what
Mm-hmm.
people might do to try to set that up.
Absolutely. Particularly when it's organic in that way, you have a great opportunity. Kids are our future, and they're going to be the ones most impacted by climate change. Getting large groups of different interests together also attracts media attention. I would say that the best way to go about doing that would be to reach out to me. Send me an email if you're planning on doing that, and I can put you in touch with the right folks at the outlet of your choice. Um, we have also worked with recently we've been working with some school groups on letters to local government officials and company heads and CEOs and such for a different project. And if your kids or groups of people ever feel like they want to do something along those lines, you can do that and then use the media as a springboard for that message. Um, that's most effective when the group itself pitches it to the outlet, though, because they want to know that it was their idea. They are presenting it and pitching it, and showing ownership is really helpful in that case.
Great. So here's a question for Emily from William. He wants to know, does the NCA address overpopulation?
We don't, the NCA currently does not address a whole lot of population issues aside from looking at some demographics where people are moving, for example, more movement into cities, more movement into coasts. As a part of the sustained assessment process, one of the activities that we're already working on is some new scenarios looking at population growth in different areas. And so, as I said, having the sustained assessment process allows us to get these activities up and running and have them ready and deliver information on a much more regular basis. So we're not waiting, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years for the next assessment, but through the same website where we're delivering the 2014 National Climate Assessment on globalchange.gov, we'll deliver new information coming out of some of these sustained assessment activities.
Great, thanks. So I have a question. So at NCSC, we have to deal a lot with denial and science denial and doubt. And so with climate change, this is an area that there's certainly a lot of pushback around. So, and I'm assuming when the National Climate Assessment is launched, there's going to be a concerted effort about that as well. And so I'm curious if each of you maybe could answer briefly to the extent of your perspectives coming from different areas. What do you think the best way for folks to be pushing back against this misinformation or science denial that could be launched at the same time the National Climate Assessment comes out?
Sure. So I work a lot with Ed Maibach at George Mason University, and Ed and Tony Rycerz up at Yale have done a lot of study on sort of communication about climate change and what messages work with people. And one of the messages that they've found to be most effective is a very short one. It's based on the evidence, more than 97% of scientists agree that climate change is happening and that human emissions have a role in that climate change. That's probably not exactly the words that they suggest, but something very close to that. So highlighting that 97%, highlighting, it's happening and humans have a role.
Terrific. Go ahead,
And building on that, I'm thinking of the comment that James Cameron makes in The Years of Living Dangerously, where he makes sort of the medical analogy and says, if 99, but he said, if 99 doctors told you that you had a particular illness, would you go get another opinion? And it's sort of the same thing. It's sort of talking about the near unanimous consensus of planetary physicians, we can say, and that, you can't that the focus on maybe the one or two or three other scientists that have something else to say is misplaced.
Paige, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, once again, I would actually refer people to our website as well. We generally like to come up with backgrounders when there's a particular hot topic that is attracting a lot of denier attention. We did this through the IPCC when people were talking about the pause, amongst other issues. I would also say, in general, don't try to get into a debate about science, particularly if you're not a scientist and you're not talking to somebody who is a scientist. I would say rather instead say, I read this and I'm also seeing that in my community. Try to keep it to what you've experienced, and then just accept sometimes that some people can't be swayed and it's best not to engage, because some of those people will just keep going forever and get you embroiled in a large, long fight.
Yeah, I can answer this as well from an education perspective, but I just wanted to throw out that we are getting a couple of requests for people's contact information, and that is on that first slide that I put up. So Josh, I was wondering if you are able to show the slide while we're still talking. We'll also send out that information afterwards, but I'm sure that as people are listening in, and as Amanda says, send me an email, they might want to just jot that down right away. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if we can get that posted for you. So, with education, it's really interesting. And at NCSE, we've had quite a bit of experience in it, and it sort of depends a little bit on the situation that you're in. And who you're talking to, if it's your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or something like that over Thanksgiving dinner, or if it's a school teacher, or if it's your neighbor, or if it's a politician. So you have to be sort of conscious about who you're talking to and what the motivations are. And so sometimes it's appropriate to address it in terms of, okay, are your motivations really political in nature and it has nothing to do with the science at all? Or is it really that you're sort of the opinion that it's more social in nature, and so it's your social group has this position, and that's going to be something that you have to address as well? Or is it just, I just need to show you some more evidence, which sometimes can be the case as well. And so, it sort of depends a little bit on the situation. The nice thing about the NCA is it's this great, huge document that's supported by all these federal agencies. And it's not just like an environmental group, and it's not just an economic group or anything like that. And so you can say, look, all of these folks are in agreement about this is what the science is showing us. And I think that's a really powerful message. And the more that we can sort of bring that home, the easier the conversation.
Minda, can I jump in on that also?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The other thing that I think
sure.
is really valuable about NCA for dealing with those sorts of situations is a lot of times people, the word climate change, the phrase climate change, has become sort of politicized. So people who watch a particular TV news channel might hear that word and immediately turn off. But a lot of people who might reject the idea of climate change still know that the ducks that they go out to hunt are migrating at different times of the year. Or they're a farmer and they see that they have to harvest that they can harvest later in the year, or that drought is getting worse. Right? They're seeing the sorts of impacts that NCA talks about that are regional and that are specific to their area. It's not the polar bears, it's not hurricanes in the Gulf if they live in New England, although it might be Hurricane Sandy. But so the report can be a really valuable tool for that, for connecting it to the experience of that person and taking it out of that very abstract political realm and making it so, are you seeing trees leaf out earlier in the year? Have you noticed that fall seems like it's getting shorter? The trees just drop all their leaves and it's done. Making it really hands-on like that, people notice that. Even if they will tell you that they don't think climate change is happening, they still know that those changes are happening. So connecting that lived experience with the more abstract part of it can be a really valuable thing. And things like the National Climate Assessment, by giving that locally, not just the very broad overview that something like IPCC gives, is especially valuable.
I think that's a great point. Thanks for adding that in. And actually, we're getting close to the end, but Josh, I know you had another question, and I think that Emily might be best suited to answer it. Josh had asked if there's been a lot of conversation in the news lately about tornado activity, particularly these past couple of days. There's been some very severe tornadoes in the south. And is there anything in this NCA that talks at all about tornadoes?
I don't think that there's a whole lot that speaks specifically to tornadoes, but the report does talk a lot about extreme about extreme weather, and really about the way that we have seen increases in extreme weather in things like heat waves, in hurricanes, in a number of different events. I think tornadoes are an issue that can be particularly hard because there is less work on tornadoes and climate change as a whole. But certainly looking at extreme events across the report, we are seeing increases in extremes across the entire country.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
I also,
sure, go ahead.
Climate Nexus actually has a background on tornadoes because the science can be confusing, and I would refer people to those if they are looking for more information on the connection between climate change and tornadoes.
Great. Paige, if you have those links and you want to send them to me later on, I can make sure that the audience gets those as well.
Okay, great.
Thanks a lot. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left. The time went really much faster than I had anticipated it would, so this is great, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to talk to our audience about it. I thought maybe if we could just go through, and if you have any last thoughts about anything that's come up in the conversations. I think that, Emily, the rollout is going to be on May 6th, is that right?
Yeah, so on May 6th, as I said, the committee will vote at their meeting begins at 8 a.m. Eastern, so 5 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast. But you have to be at the meeting in person to attend. We don't have a call-in number. But after that happens, once the committee approves the report, there will be, I think, a fairly quick tick as they turn the report over to the government then releases it. So there is a stakeholder event on the afternoon of May 6th, beginning at 2 p.m. Eastern. I think we will probably be able to share some information soon about whether that may also be available as a webcast. So even if folks aren't here in DC, I think we'll be able to let you know soon if that's something that would also be available on the web.
Terrific.
So certainly, if it is, I can follow up and let you know, Minda, and you can let your other folks know that might be here.
Great. And I know that our colleague here at NCSE, Mark McCaffrey, is going to be joining you over there at the White House.
He will be
who
here.
else is going to be there? Do you know already, or is it still in the works?
It's still in the works. So,
okay.
Great. But we should have information soon.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, and we'll let people know. And we're hoping that later on in that day, after the report's been released and there's been some conversation about it, Mark will be able to chat with our members about more information about it too. So, Paige, any last thoughts?
No, I just would encourage people to get in touch with me if they're considering writing an op-ed or a letter to the editor and have any questions or need any help identifying the right outlets and people at those outlets. That's what I do all day, so I'm happy to help.
Cool. And for those who've been following in the chat box, we've been posting links from Climate Nexus and the NCA as well as NCSC and others of useful things like how to write a letter to the editor. So just take a peek in there, and then you're also welcome, of course, to get in touch with any of the panelists. And Amanda, any last thoughts?
Yeah, for anyone who's interested in learning how to integrate the report into their social media sites, newsletters, etc., please get in touch with me and I can send you some slides and information about the website.
Terrific. And yeah, so I wanted to thank everyone for coming, and feel free to get in touch if you have any more questions. So have a good day, everybody.
And
Thanks,
before
Minda.
everyone signs
Bye.
off, let me
Thank
just
you.
urge you again, please, 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 attendees, thank you all for coming. This will be recorded and hopefully go up online on NCSC's YouTube channel, so pass that on to your friends. And do fill out, you should get a survey by email in not too long after we finish up here. Please fill that out. It helps us make these better in the future. And please do sign up for the one next month and in months to come. Thanks so much for coming, and thank you, panelists. It was great having you all. I learned a lot. I hope everyone, all of the people attending did as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.